Hey everyone, Jason from Banjo here. Thank you so much for a great Christmas season and for your continued support. For those of you out there now that have used your banjo over Christmas, it's probably time for some maintenance. No doubt you did a lot of shucking at Valentine's Day too, so maybe the tip of your banjo is now sort of a little bit chipped or worn, or parts of it are just kind of, damaged and nicked. A great example of that, and you can't really tell. I mean, the metal is very hard, but you see, these are my used knives that I sharpen regularly, and they don't really have too many nicks and dings. There's only a few tools you need to keep any oyster knife in good working condition. Whether you use a banjo, whether you use a traditional knife, right? With these knives, the same thing will happen, probably even more so. You're going to get chips and nicks, and sometimes the tips snap off. Don't stick them in the ice. When you stick the knives in the ice, the metal gets cold and brittle, and then you start shucking and the blades snap. Don't do that. Okay, so here's a few things you need. Check this out. You have an abrasive sponge. This is basically what you use for just, keep deburring your knife. If you use one of these on your knife every time you shuck, it'll actually stay relatively clean, and that's what I use. That's why my blades always have a nice smooth finish on them. They're basically polished at this point. Okay, but if you have to do some shaping though, where you actually have to shape the knife, and I don't have one here off the top of my head, but even with a banjo, if you decide, you want to take a little bit off the tip to help it penetrate better, then you need to shape the blade however you prefer. So if you want to do some shaping, you don't need a grinding wheel. If you've got one, great. It's kind of excessive though. The secret is honestly just a file. Just a regular, go down to the store, 12, 15 bucks, right? You get yourself a decent file, a fine file. They call this one a bastard file. I don't know. But you see, it's got a pattern of teeth on it, and this is the perfect thing for shaping your knives. And especially if you've got like deep dings and deep cuts in your in chips and whatnot in your blade, then having, pardon me a sec here, but having a file takes a lot of metal off at once, and you just use a technique to do that. Watch an upcoming video I'm gonna make, the next one as a matter of fact, part 2, where I'm gonna just do really quickly a demonstration of the technique you use to do the file. Now if you have a diamond stone, great. It's fantastic. Diamond stones work really, really well. I don't really like them very much. Now, I just buy cheap ones. I'm sure maybe it's different if you buy really expensive ones, but I've bought mid-range ones. And you see, they always rust, right? They always get little rust spots on them. That's fine, but I just don't like the look of it. Plus, I don't like that the majority of diamond stones have these, slots in them, and that's the case with many of them. And I presume that it's partially because it makes them cheaper, but also because they assume you're sharpening big, sort of like longer edges, right? Like wide chisels or maybe chef knives or whatever. But the reality is our little pointy oyster knives do a number on sharpening stones, leave gouges and stuff after a while. File's all you need, and abrasive sponge is all you need. I'm telling you folks.